Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. Israel's prime minister says civilian deaths in the Rafah strike were tragically wrong and will be investigated. And Israel's top military prosecutor describes the incident as very grave. Reactions from the White House.
Destructive storms and tornadoes kill at least 23 people over Memorial Day weekend. With damage assessment underway, President Biden says he's contacted governors to see what federal support they need. We have footage of the aftermath.
President Biden highlights the fight for democracy while his campaign criticizes former President Trump over a Memorial Day post. What Trump is saying and why it's sparking controversy. Iris Tao in D.C.
Passengers were evacuated as a United Airlines Airbus engine catches fire, the latest of many recent aviation incidents.
Will Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton taste revenge in today's runoff elections? More on how the pair is going after those in their own party.
Major retailers are stepping up discounts heading into the summer months, hoping to entice inflation-wary shoppers into opening their wallets. We bring you that story and more with the host of NTD's Business Matters.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Mia Cox sitting in for Evelyn Lee today.
Welcome to NTD.
And there's a lot happening this morning in the news.
Yeah, absolutely. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, and we saw witnesses telling Reuters that they saw IDF tanks rolling through central Rafah.
And we do expect a statement from the IDF, but that hasn't come out just yet.
Yeah, a lot of condemnation for that strike in Rafah that killed civilians, with the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Josep Borrell, condemning it in the strongest terms.
And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he will continue the war effort there. So that's all part of the top story today. Netanyahu says the IDF is investigating the civilian deaths caused by the Israeli airstrike in Rafah on Sunday.
And today's Daniel Monahan has more on what Netanyahu is referring to as a tragedy.
Netanyahu on Monday said Sunday's airstrike in Rafah in southern Gaza was not intended to cause civilian casualties.
In
Rafah, we already evacuated about 1 million non-combatant residents, and despite our utmost effort not to harm non-combatants, something, unfortunately, went tragically wrong.
He said Israel is conducting an investigation. He added that it is Israel's policy to look into incidents which result in civilian deaths.
For us, every non-combatant that is hurt is a tragedy. For Hamas, it's a strategy. This is the whole difference.
On Monday, Israel's top military prosecutor described the incident as very grave. She said it was natural that difficult events happen in a war of such scope and intensity.
The details of yesterday's incident are still under an investigation, which we are committed to conducting to the fullest extent. The IDF regrets any harm to non-combatants during the war.
Citing an unnamed source, ABC News reported Israeli officials told the U.S. they believe shrapnel from the airstrike may have ignited a fuel tank near a refugee camp. The report says there is no way for the U.S. to verify this claim. A U.S. National Security Council spokesperson reportedly said Monday, Israel must take every precaution to protect civilians. According to reports, the unnamed White House official said the U.S. is actively engaging the IDF to assess what happened. The statement also said Israel has a right to go after Hamas. Israel also said it is investigating reports of an exchange of fire between Israeli and Egyptian soldiers. Egypt says a border guard was killed near the Rafah border crossing. Egypt's military spokesperson said an investigation is underway. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Here for an update on the war in Gaza is David Wormser. He's an analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy. David, good morning, and thanks for bringing clarity to us. Israel struck Rafah. It said it killed senior terrorist leaders. A fire connected to the strike left 45 displaced Palestinians dead. International outrage followed. We know Hamas hides among civilians. What is the tolerance for the loss of civilian life in this war? Is there a red line?
Well, there would be a red line, and it would mean that if the Israelis, with complete disregard for non-combatant humans and without warning, struck areas that are supposed to be safe and so forth, those would be red lines, because under the laws of war, you're required. If there's a clearly civilian or humanitarian target like a hospital or something, you need to warn the population before you're going to attack it, to say that this is used as a military target. Please evacuate. In this specific case, none of those things apply. The Israelis have given plenty of warning. It's an area that actually should have been evacuated. A mile away is actually where the real refugee structures begin. So this is supposed to have been a cleared out area. The Israelis had dropped leaflets and warned that. Second of all, this was not a hospital or true humanitarian structure. This was a United Nations Relief Works Agency, UNRWA, facility, which we have seen used extensively militarily by Hamas and unfortunately even by UNRWA staff to have tunnels and store weapons. This specific case, the two targets were number 5 and just slightly under him, leader of Hamas. This is one of the top 5 people in Hamas that was in a Jeep that Israel struck. The Jeep was struck with a very precision-guided munition. This is exactly the sort of operations the United States said Israel should do instead of doing a ground operation. So this is the cost, actually, of the tactics that are being advised for Israel. And what happened, we don't know for sure, but what we're gathering is that there was some sort of collateral or secondary explosion. There obviously was some weaponry on that Jeep that then ignited, causing shrapnel to fly all over the place in quite some distance that might have hit a gas tank, but we're not really sure how the fire started. It's under investigation. And that's the last part, is not only is there no intention to hit civilians, but the second thing is Israel has a very robust legal structure to examine any potential criminal or activity or criminal negligence or malfeasance. So Israel operates like a Western country, which is what's required to avoid any international action.
I understand what you're saying here, David, and people who rushed into that Tel Al Sultan neighborhood said that the fire was unreal and they were pulling out children and even young other people and elderly as well here. The Times of Israel reports that the International Court of Justice's order calling on Israel to stop its operation in Rafah is vague. It says the outlet the outlet's saying that it's unclear whether or not Israel can continue its operation only if it doesn't commit genocidal acts. Can you clear this up for us?
Thanks, Kevin. That's a great question. It's kind of like a Rorschach test. This UN court that did this. It basically said Israel is about to do something that will lead to genocide. It shouldn't do it. So the Israelis and a number of the justices on that court, those more toward the West, and the Ugandan judge, basically said, well, it doesn't really require Israel to stop. It just requires Israel not to do something that could amount to genocide or a war crime. So the Israelis said, and so far the United States and other countries have agreed with Israel, Israel has not conducted any war crimes in this war, and it is unlikely to do so now, given all the activity it's done to try to save and preserve the civilian population and reduce collateral damage. So the Israelis say it's not really a red light, it's just a yellow light, proceed with caution. Whereas those who would like to see it as an international court imposing its will on Israel will say, no, it told Israel to stop. So that's why I say it's like a Rorschach test. It's what one really reads into it.
Okay, David, let's zoom out here for a moment. Is resistance to supporting Israel an acceptance of more tolerism for terrorism, broadly speaking?
Well, I believe it is. At this point, Hamas has shown itself what it is. It has said that it will redo October 7th, and it says that it will reconstitute itself immediately. And even the other Palestinian structures, including the Palestinian Authority, have said essentially they will include Hamas in any government. Hamas has said it will redo on October 7th. So any resolution to this war in Gaza that leaves Hamas in power in any shape or form in any neighborhood will become a basis for the resumption of another wave of terrorist attacks that culminate in another October 7th or worse. So I think, yes, there's no way around it that any war termination here, short of a Israeli victory and elimination of Hamas as a governmental structure, is essentially setting up the next round of terrorism.
Well, thank you for providing your insight with us this morning. David Wormser, analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy.
Thank you.
Moving on to the weather, a series of powerful storms and tornadoes hit the central and southern U.S. over Memorial Day weekend.
State authorities say the severe weather killed at least 23 people.
Officials say there's been over 600 reports of storm damage in at least 20 states. President Biden says FEMA is on the ground doing damage assessments.
The president says he's contacted governors to see what federal support they need. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the aftermath.
Severe weather over Memorial Day weekend left at least 23 people in 4 states dead. Cook County, Texas officials say a tornado hit a trailer park Sunday, killing 7 people. That included a woman and her 2 young children. Their trailer was thrown across a street. Drone footage of the area shows destroyed buildings and wrecked vehicles. One resident says he feels lucky to be alive.
At the moment there, I thought, well, I'm going to be able to hold it together.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear on Monday said 5 people died in his state. Beshear's office says the 5th death was a 54-year-old man who died from a heart attack while cutting fallen trees. Beshear said 1 person injured was fighting for their life.
So please pray for that individual as his circumstances appear very difficult and dire.
The governor said restoring power in some areas could take days. Officials say the storms damaged around 100 state highways and roads. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders said weekend storms left at least 8 people dead. She said the focus is on rescue during the assessment phase and warned rebuilding would not be a short process. Oklahoma authorities say 2 people died in Mayes County, east of Tulsa. Over 20 others were injured, including guests at an outdoor wedding. The National Weather Service warned over 30 million people of severe thunderstorms as storms moved northeast. Meanwhile, South Texas to Florida is seeing an early season heat wave. The Atlantic hurricane season starts next Saturday, which government forecasters say could have the potential to be extraordinary. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
And storms delayed flights in the New York City area by up to 3 hours yesterday, making travel difficult after the long holiday weekend.
Most delays at LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark airports were at least 1 hour.
The New York criminal trial against former President Trump heads for closing arguments today after more than 4 weeks and nearly 24 witnesses.
The jury will start deliberating as early as tomorrow. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards breaks down what we can expect.
On Tuesday, prosecutors and defense lawyers will give closing arguments that are expected to last all day. Although the attorneys won't be presenting more evidence, they will emphasize key points they want to leave with the jury. Prosecutors will remind jurors of what they believe is the most compelling evidence. But for the defense, especially having called only 2 witnesses, this will be a key moment to present their own narrative. The case charges Trump with falsifying business records. The charges, which are misdemeanors, were elevated to a first-degree felony as Trump is also accused of engaging in another crime, although it's not named in the indictment. Judge Juan Merchan has rejected the defense's request that the jury be instructed to reach very specific findings. The prosecution throughout its case posed 3 possible crimes that Trump could have tried to cover up, including tax evasion, conspiracy, and campaign finance violation. How the judge interprets the law could influence the jury's decision. Judge Merchan will take about an hour giving jury instructions before deliberations begin on Wednesday. Their job is to determine the facts of this case and decide whether those actions violated the law. There's no time limit on how long the jury can take, but evaluating 34 counts of falsifying business records could take a while. To reach a verdict, all 12 jurors must agree that Trump is either guilty or not guilty for the judge to accept it. If the jury can't reach a consensus after several days, the defense might ask for a mistrial. While the judge will likely instruct the jury to keep trying, if they can't agree, he will have no choice but to declare a mistrial. On the other hand, if Trump is convicted, he could face up to 4 years in prison or probation and a hefty fine. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Former President Trump is asking a federal judge to reject a gag order request in his classified documents case. His attorneys are calling it unconstitutional censorship. The gag order requested by special counsel Jack Smith's office would limit Trump's ability to talk publicly about officials who searched his Mar-a-Lago estate. This follows Trump's criticism about a deadly force statement for the 2022 FBI raid. Trump's campaign claimed that the Department of Justice was locked and loaded and ready to kill the former president. But the use of deadly force is standard government policy for search warrants. Smith argued Trump's characterizations have endangered law enforcement officers. He says limiting such comments does not restrict legitimate speech. Trump's lawyers say the order is meant to target Trump's speech as he runs for president.
And President Biden yesterday paid tribute to fallen soldiers as he stressed the need to protect democracy. That's as former President Trump denounced those he says are trying to destroy the country. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
President Biden at Arlington National Cemetery honoring troops who died fighting for America.
Our fallen heroes have brought us closer.
And stressing the need to protect democracy.
Every generation has to earn it, fight for it, defend it in battle between autocracy and democracy.
Democracy is a key theme in Biden's 2024 pitch. He's also touting his administration's work for veterans.
Last year, the VA delivered more benefits and processed more claims than ever in our history.
While Biden did not invoke his political rival, former President Trump in a post this morning wrote Happy Memorial Day to all, including those who are, quote, working so hard to destroy our once great country. Biden's campaign seized on that post, accusing Trump of posting a Memorial Day message with zero mention of fallen soldiers. That's despite Trump earlier posting this picture and calling on people to remember the fallen. According to NBC exit polls, Trump won 60% of veteran support in 2016 and 54% in 2020. Biden is seeking to highlight veterans issues in the coming weeks, including on a trip to France next week for D-Day anniversary. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Coming up, a deadly disease outbreak is the latest concern as streams and bodies trapped under rubble form a potent mix. Why thousands more in Papua New Guinea have been ordered to evacuate.
Ukraine releases footage of a Russian strike that killed at least 18 people in a shopping center. And Russia says its forces captured 2 villages in Ukraine.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
The shining gem of New England. This delightful seaside city of Newport is one of the most beautiful places in the state. Today, we bring you here as we meet with our friends and fellow musicians from the Hermitage Piano Trio. As a team, they have garnered multiple Grammy Award nominations. with their breathtaking performances.
Oh, wow, I did not think this instrument can make that sound, right?
The pandemic made this reunion even more special.
3 of us, we like it because we feel music the same way, so...
Don't miss us on the next episode of Piano Talks.
I'm in the bedroom.
Okay.
Oh, shit. It's not here.
What?
The gun's not here.
What do you mean? Where is it?
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, come on.
Thousands of residents were ordered to evacuate today from the path of a still active landslide in Papua New Guinea.
Authorities fear that a second landslide and disease outbreak are looming.
Water streams and bodies trapped beneath the tons of debris could be a deadly combination.
A UN agency estimates 670 villagers died, while Papua New Guinea's government says it thinks more than 2,000 people were buried. 5 bodies were retrieved from the rubble by Monday.
A mass of boulders, earth, and splintered trees devastated a village when a limestone mountainside sheared away Friday.
The blanket of debris has become more unstable with recent rain and streams trapped beneath the ground and rubble. Ukrainian officials say a Russian strike hit a Kharkiv shopping center, killing 18 people over the weekend. Ukraine released security camera footage yesterday showing what it says is the moment Russian missiles hit. Police and witnesses described at least 2 explosions. Officials say nearly 200 people were inside the building at the time and that 50 were injured. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said Russian forces captured 2 Ukrainian villages yesterday. The villages were in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions. Ukraine's military chief said Ukrainian forces were taking measures to stabilize the situation and stop the enemy from advancing.
U.S. lawmakers visiting Taiwan are promising to help bolster deterrence against the Chinese regime. A bipartisan congressional delegation arrived just days after Beijing surrounded the island with massive war games. With China framing these maneuvers as exercises to seize power, we're going to delve into the CCP's strategic, psychological, and geopolitical implications. We're joined by retired Colonel John Mills, a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy and the author of The Nation Will Follow, for his insights. Colonel, welcome. Good to see you. To begin with, what do you believe is the primary purpose behind China's recent military drills encircling Taiwan? Do you think it's about intimidation or genuinely about readiness for invasion?
Oh, good morning, Stephanie. I think all of the above. Over the last few years, the Chinese have demonstrated a maturing and more advanced capability to both encircle and also actually carry out an attack on Taiwan. And this exercise was a bit different because it showed actually armed aircraft, armed fighter and bomber aircraft of the Chinese attempt to penetrate the airspace of Taiwan. So this was in many ways more provocative than what we have seen before. So both the capability to encircle, to blockade, and actually invade is what was being showed during Joint Sword 24A.
Wow, so this actually marks a shift, you would say. So how does they've also, they've got a lot of messaging around Taiwan, of course, the CCP, but this time they're calling the new president a dangerous separatist. How does that play into their strategy on Taiwan?
Yes, thank you. The Chinese have never liked William Lai and called him a separatist. Now, one of the terms that was used multiple times by the Chinese foreign ministers and the spokespersons was punishment. This was punishment. William Lai, in his inauguration speech last Monday, did not mention the one China term or expression, which China so much covets and wants to always hear from Taiwan. And that's not what they're getting out of the DPP. Neither President Tsai or now President Lai have used that term, that all-important term to China, that one China policy and one China term. And they did not get that and did not like what they heard during the inauguration.
Yes, President Lai seems to be standing strong against China, and yet he did say recently that in response to these statements that he's still ready to work with China despite the military drills around the island. How do you interpret that stance, and what impact do you think it could have on cross-strait relations?
Well, the former Taiwanese President Ma has also been kind of involved in this by traveling to the mainland and saying a lot of unhelpful things in regards to Taiwan. President Lai has continually reached out. China does not want to work with them, just as simple as that. They do not like the DPP and have not liked anything about the inauguration of William Lai. So they are going to essentially cold shoulder him and ignore him and do everything further to isolate Taiwan.
Now, back in the U.S., Congressman McCall, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, led a delegation in Taiwan this week. He vowed to boost Taiwan's defense yesterday by speeding up defensive weapon deliveries. In your view, how should the international community, especially the U.S., be responding to Beijing's aggression at this time?
Well, resolve and clarity is all important. And so any wobbliness on the part of the Biden team, which unfortunately they've been very wobbly, strong, weak, they have to be consistent on this. And we have a challenge with our industrial base. We need to make sure that Taiwan receives the priority it should as far as arms deliveries. And that, again, is part of the showing clarity and resolve.
All right, we will keep our eyes trained very closely on this. Thank you so much, Colonel John Mills, for your insights.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And next up, demonstrators gathered outside Taiwan's parliament today to protest a bill that would give lawmakers new oversight powers. The bill would create a new criminal offense called contempt of parliament. The law would fine or jail officials if they were found to have lied in parliament. They could also be punished for refusing to answer questions or provide documents during hearings. Critics argue the bill is vaguely worded. Some fear it could force officials to disclose sensitive information on defense and diplomacy. Others accuse the opposition parties of trying to force the bill through. Opposition parties say the bill is needed for government accountability. Protesters on the streets listened to speeches and chanted slogans like "No democracy without deliberation." And the parliament continued to process motions on the bills this morning. Opposition parties want to pass the bill by the end of the day. Coming up, passengers were evacuated after United Airlines plane engine catches fire.
And a scare for flyers who were asked to prepare for a water landing aboard a Spirit Airlines flight.
The latest in a spate of aviation incidents.
And will Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton have a pivotal moment in today's runoff elections? More on how the pair is going after those in their own party. Some rivalry.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
We are only 80 years removed from countries that killed 60 to 70 million people intentionally. And we have people being like, oh, it can't happen here. Yeah, it can, and it might.
These people, they're not interested in the facts. They're not interested in anything except crushing people that are in their way.
There needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
A strong church can stop this.
Do you believe in Jesus?
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We're gonna walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here. I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Loam, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I am so proud to call you my son.
It's good to have you back with us. 2 prominent Texas Republicans are looking to settle political scores within their own party in today's primary runoff elections. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on the critical votes that will decide nearly 3 dozen unresolved races from the state's March 5th primary.
Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton are leveraging their political clout to unseat Republican state representatives who have opposed them on policy or political grounds. Abbott and Paxton have poured funds into their opponents' campaigns and have even held rallies to support them. Abbott is targeting GOP members who helped defeat his 2023 education plan, which aimed to allocate taxpayer money for private schools. Meanwhile, Paxton has focused on more than 30 incumbents who voted to impeach him last year on corruption charges. Despite his acquittal in the state Senate, the memory of the impeachment still lingers. 9 Republican state house incumbents were defeated in the March 5th primary, with an additional 8 forced into runoffs. All were targeted by either Abbott, Paxton, or both. The most high-profile of these runoffs is in District 21, where Speaker Dade Phelan faces a challenge from oil and gas consultant and party activist David Covey. Phelan, who oversaw Paxton's impeachment effort, was censured by the Republican Party of Texas for allegedly straying from Republican principles and priorities. A defeat for Phelan would be a significant victory for Paxton. Covey, endorsed by Paxton and former President Donald Trump, led the March primary with 46% of the vote against Phelan's 43%. Another noteworthy contest is in District 33, where Trump campaign advisor Katrina Pearson hopes to unseat State Representative Justin Holland. Pearson, supported by both Abbott and Paxton, narrowly led Holland in the March primary 40% to 39%. Abbott and Paxton are also backing opposing candidates in 5 state house runoffs, as well as in the race to replace retiring U.S. Representative Kay Granger in the 12th Congressional District. The Texas primary runoff election will be held today, with polls closing at 7 p.m. local time. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Passengers in Chicago were forced to abandon a United Airlines flight as the aircraft's engine caught fire.
There were no injuries reported, and this is the latest in a spate of aviation incidents in recent months.
United Flight 2091 had to be towed from the taxiway to the gate after one of its engines caught fire yesterday.
The airline said all 148 passengers aboard the Airbus A320 were put on another flight with minimal delays. Local media reported arrivals were briefly halted at O'Hare Airport.
In a separate incident this weekend, an alarming few moments for passengers aboard a Florida-bound Spirit Airlines flight. They were asked to put on their life preservers and prepare for a water landing soon after takeoff from Montego Bay, Jamaica.
The airline said the Airbus A321 had to turn around and return to Montego Bay following a suspected mechanical issue. It landed safely at Sangster International Airport, and passengers were put on a different flight. Two-time NBA champion and Hall of Famer Bill Walton died yesterday at age 71. Walton had a prolonged battle with cancer. The NBA said yesterday he was surrounded by family when he died. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said in a statement that Walton was truly one of a kind. He recalled Walton's accomplishments on and off the court, as well as his zest for life. Walton rose to fame playing for the University of California under coach John Wooden, winning national championships in 1972 and 73. As a pro, he led the Portland Trail Blazers to the championship in the 77-78 season, where he was named MVP. He later helped the Boston Celtics win the 85-86 championship. Multiple injuries afflicted him during his playing days and also interrupted his career as a well-loved commentator. Walton leaves behind a wife, Lori, and 4 sons, all of whom play college basketball.
And new details emerge while searching for the suspect who killed the former General Hospital actor in downtown Los Angeles.
Police say 3 men were trying to steal a catalytic converter when the victim interrupted them. They said one of the suspects pulled out a gun and shot him, then drove off in a vehicle.
Next up, has the U.S. been traumatized by 2 decades of the war on terror?
Is it time now to move on from that trauma and step up counterterrorism efforts in Afghanistan and Pakistan?
A study by former senior U.S. policymakers says yes. However, it's not advocating a return to war.
Here for an assessment of this approach is Kyle Scheidler, a counterterrorism analyst at the Center for Security Policy.
Well, I found the report troubling because while they were accurately assessing the rise in threat of terrorism from the region, particularly the threat from the Islamic State in Afghanistan, their conclusions were to do more of the same sort of failed policies we've done for 20 years, none of which have been particularly helpful. Things like continuing to engage the Taliban, continuing to lavish money on the Pakistanis, hoping that they will end their ties to a variety of radical Islamic terrorist groups. None of those things have worked in 20 years. They won't work in another 20 years. And so I'm not quite sure what they hope to extract out of this report other than just a continuing to do things the way that they've always been done.
So you're striking at the heart of the issue here. Part of it is that these study authors are saying that the conventional warfare is out and now they need to use more targeted attacks. And they're talking about these shows of force using drones to deter any alliance between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Would that be effective?
Not as they describe it. I mean, for one thing, you're talking about an over-the-horizon counterterrorism approach that's going to rely really heavily on quality intelligence. Where do they think they're going to get that quality intelligence without people on the ground cooperating with them, which they have no way to achieve now that the Taliban is in government? And so, and then they want to tighten the rules of engagement, which are already extremely tight, to put in place these civilian harm teams that will act as a sort of check on the military and intelligence community in conducting these drone strikes. So they're going to make it even harder to accurately identify and strike terrorist leaders. So I don't know how they expect that this will solve the problem, which they correctly identify, which is that terrorism in the region is a continued threat.
The report is calling on the United States to be less restrictive when it uses force in responding here. Can you explain what that means?
Well, they aren't quite clear about that, in my view, because on the one hand, they want to institute these civilian harm red teams that will double check and sort of act as overseers for where the military can and can't strike. And on the other hand, they call for lessening the rules of engagement. So what do they quite mean by that? It's not clear to me.
And there's another major player, of course, as we know here in the Asia region, and that is the Chinese Communist regime in Beijing. Do they have their tentacles in any of these terrorist groups that are emerging in these two countries?
Well, I think we certainly have to be aware that they have benefited greatly from our failed counterterrorism policies in the region. I mentioned their success in acquiring contracts for mining in Afghanistan, for example. They have a very close relationship with the Pakistanis, including receiving technology from the Pakistanis when we had that downed plane, or excuse me, that helicopter that went down during the raid to kill Osama bin Laden. So the relationship between the Chinese and the Pakistanis continues to be concerning. Here in the report is the need to work closer with India, which is very interested both in counterterrorism cooperation with us as well as cooperating on issues of dealing with Chinese expansionism. You know, I think there are opportunities presented, but we do have to be serious about addressing the threat that's posed by the Chinese Communist Party and their efforts in the region.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Kyle Scheidler, Counterterrorism Analyst at the Center for Security Policy.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Major retailers are stepping up discounts heading into the summer months, hoping to entice inflation-weary shoppers into opening their wallets. We bring you that story and more with the host of NTD's Business Matters after the break.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Xing.
In a society that we were brought up in, it's very hard on little black boys. You have to navigate feelings and emotions so the world don't get you.
Sometimes when I cry, I won't know how I'm feeling or why I'm crying.
I just grew up never feeling like it was okay to cry.
Yeah.
And so he really forced me to have to reconnect with the kid that didn't get to cry.
That's beautiful.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, you know, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel actually an effect, and I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
Welcome back, and joining us now is NTD's Business Matters host, Don Ma, to give us the latest updates from the financial world.
Don, I'm ready for some savings. Hope you have some good news for us.
Well, Kevin, I do have good news for you, because as the weather starts to heat up, so are sales, it looks like. And what I'm talking about here is major retailers slashing prices here to win over customers who are burned out over inflation. So many price-conscious consumers are cutting back. So to attract shoppers, major retailers are stepping up discounts here into the summer months. For example, Walmart maintained strong sales in recent quarters with its rolled back prices, and rival Target slashing prices as well on thousands of items to compete. Low-cost supermarket chain Aldi also offering promotions through Labor Day, so you can check those out, those stores out. Retailers recognize that unless they pull out, some stops here on pricing, they are going to have some difficulty here holding on to the customers that they already have. And the consumer really has had enough of inflation. I know I do have had enough. And they're starting to take action in terms of where they shop, how they shop, and the amount they buy.
All right, so the competition is certainly increasing there in that context. But next up, Memorial Day movie receipts are in. How do they look?
On that front, not so good because I don't know if you guys went to the movies this weekend. If you did not, you're not alone. In fact, you're far from alone here. And it signals that the worst U.S. box office returns for Memorial Day weekend in nearly 3 decades here. According to ComScore, ticket sales for the weekend through Monday are estimated at $128 million. This is well below last year's when sales tallied about $205 million. So those receipts was thanks to the blockbuster performances of Oppenheimer and Barbie. We all remember those movies. Analysts are blaming this year's lackluster sales on lingering impact from Hollywood strikes. And the number 1 movie is projected to be Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, estimated to take in about $32 million. And this holiday weekend still stands ahead of 1995 when Casper was number 1 at the box office and receipts totaled $117 million. But compare that to 2013 when theaters brought in $314 million, driven by Fast and Furious 6. Those numbers, by the way, are not adjusted for inflation.
Well, coming in at a close second was Garfield at about 31 million. So just trying to get off the ground there. Let's move on. Argentina's president is about to come to the U.S. and he came to the U.S. yesterday, and he's set to meet with top executives. What can you tell us?
Right. So Argentina's president, Javier Milei, is set to meet with top executives here in the United States. So that's including with many top CEOs. This is during his trip to the United States this week. Libertarian Milei is scheduled to stay in San Francisco through Friday. This is according to his spokesperson. Yesterday, he's to meet Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, Apple CEO as well, Tim Cook, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. He's also, in addition to all that, going to speak at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. This is a think tank which promotes limited government. And he's going to also meet with the university's chancellor and the think tank's director. Milei is also meeting with economists from the think tank, as well as investors and entrepreneurs linked to artificial intelligence. So something to look out for, I think, is something that we should have this on our radar.
Yeah, he's the guy that wanted to take the chainsaw out of the regulations.
Exactly.
All right, Don Ma, host of NTD's Business Matters, thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, friends and family of the military honored America's fallen heroes yesterday. NTD has more from the 100th anniversary of a Memorial Day tradition in California, so stay tuned.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
I'm Richard Karn, and I love my hose. It ain't those old hoses. This is my hose. The new Pocket Hose Copper Bullet, now infused with real copper, so your water is always clean and lead-free. Just turn on the water and watch your hose grow and grow. And when you turn off the water, away it goes. Our new inner tube uses 3 layers of high-strength latex on the inside. Then it's wrapped in a new polymer filament jacket, 3 times stronger than the other hoses. But my favorite part of our new hose build? The oversized, easy-to-grip fittings. Get the super light 25-foot Pocket Hose Copper Bullet today for only $29.99. But wait, call now and get our copper spray nozzle with our exclusive thumb drive free. This is an exclusive release of our newest Pocket Hose. Order now.
Call 1-800-960-8919. That's 1-800-960-8919 or visit copperbullet.hose.com. Order now.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I'm so proud to call you my son.
Good to have you here with us. From marching bands to musical performances, one of the nation's largest Memorial Day parades took place in the heart of Washington, D.C. yesterday.
Citizens and veterans from across the country gathered to honor American servicemen and women who lost their lives in the line of duty. NTD's Sam Wong has more.
Floats and marching band taking over Constitution Avenue bring a full slate of patriotic tunes to the heart of the nation's capital. Spectators stopping by along the sidewalk, cheering on as the parade makes its way down the street.
Memorial Day is when we honor those who have fallen as an ultimate sacrifice to our country. It's a solemn holiday. We celebrate the victory over the grave and the victory of freedom for all mankind.
For many years, Memorial Day was widely referred to as Decoration Day. Its inception traces all the way back to the years after the Civil War, and it didn't become a federal holiday until 1971. From parades to marching band to wreath-laying ceremony, Memorial Day is observed and celebrated annually on the last Monday in May. To many Americans, it's a day of remembrance of those who paid the ultimate sacrifices while serving the country. It also marks the unofficial beginning of summer.
For me personally, there's no place I'd rather be than here in DC with all of these families of fallen. They do this every day. They feel this pain and this heartbreak every day. And so for us to be here and walk alongside them and truly honor and remember their fallen hero, we want to say their names and remember who they were and the sacrifice that they made.
To me personally, I recognize both my son, who served many missions in the United States Air Force, and he is now passed, and we're here to celebrate and honor him. as well as all the soldiers and sailors that I was with on my aircraft carrier in Vietnam. This visit to Washington, I've had 2 people see my veteran's hat and say, "Welcome home." And that is something I never heard when I came back 50 years ago.
We're here on Constitution Avenue, right across the street from the National Archives. Right now, clouds are gathering above us, but rain or shine, the celebration carries on. Citizens from across the United States plan to honor the fallen for many years to come. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Sam Wong, NTD News.
You know, I was there yesterday, and I was truly touched by the humility and the pride, the hand in hand, not conflicting, of both the service members and the onlookers. It was really quite something to see.
Yeah, truly a solemn occasion. You know, Veterans Day honoring those who are still alive, and Memorial Day honoring those who paid the ultimate price to keep this country alive and well.
As we heard from Sam, you know, this tradition will continue, and there's a reason for that for sure. And it has its place. It's important.
Yes. And moving on here, Mountain View Cemetery's annual Memorial Day commemoration is a family-friendly event to honor the men and women who gave their lives serving the country. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Let freedom ring. Memorial Day is a long-standing tradition in our country. You know, we're paying respects to the people that have given their lives to fight for our freedom.
Families and veterans across the nation honor the men and women who died serving in the military.
My father was in the Army, my oldest brother was in the Air Force, and then my other brother was in the Army.
The Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California holds its family-friendly 100th Memorial Day event.
I've played it many times, knowing that it's one of the most significant types of ceremonies when you play the taps.
That's all part of the tradition. Some of these songs we've been saying for hundreds of years, not longer. They all kind of contribute to the legacy of Memorial Day that we try to keep going.
Originally known as Decoration Day, it was established 3 years following the Civil War. Many Americans observe Memorial Day through cemeteries, memorials, family gatherings, and parades.
Figuring out who those people are in your neighborhood, those people that fought in war, that contributed something to their military or to service, and to talk to them and learn their stories. Really telling stories, I think, is the best way we can kind of keep this tradition going.
Lieutenant Colonel Seehauer says the fallen heroes are never really forgotten when there's a way to remember them through the Memorial Day commemorations. Reporting in Oakland, California, David Lamb, NTD News.
Such a good report. And you know, my family has some veterans in it, like my grandfather, who fought the Nazis in Germany right before D-Day. He parachuted behind enemy lines, got shot 3 times coming down, and then got the Purple Heart. He got a 21-gun salute when he was in his funeral.
Oh, incredible. You know, my granddad also fought in World War II, but he didn't speak about it much, and that's a common occurrence as well as I understand it. So it's one of these things that it's really worthwhile to try to draw out those stories, as we heard in the package. There are so many stories to tell.
Yes, a lot of humility that your grandfather had, seems.
Well, let's head now to the second part of our broadcast, which starts now.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. Israel's prime minister says civilian deaths in the Rafah strike were tragically wrong and will be investigated. And Israel's top military prosecutor describes the incident as very grave. Reactions from the White House.
Closing arguments set for today in former President Trump's business records trial. Will the jury's decision come down to Cohen's credibility? And what are the possible outcomes of the trial? Our contributor answers.
Destructive storms and tornadoes kill at least 23 people over Memorial Day weekend. With damage assessment underway, President Biden says he's contacted governors to see what federal support they need. We have footage of the aftermath.
Passengers were evacuated as a United Airlines Airbus engine catches fire, the latest of many recent aviation incidents.
The National Archives hopes to shed light on untold stories of Revolutionary War veterans. The work involves transcribing 2 million pages of historical records. What's the end goal of the project? We get the whole story.
This wall isn't keeping people out, it's bringing them together. Hear more about a mobile Vietnam War memorial wall in Los Angeles.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
I'm Stephanie Cox, sitting in for Evelyn today.
Welcome to NTD.
And good morning. Today is Tuesday, 28th, and today's top news is Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says the IDF is investigating civilian deaths caused by an Israeli airstrike in Rafah on Sunday.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on what Netanyahu is referring to as a tragedy.
Netanyahu on Monday said Sunday's airstrike in Rafah in southern Gaza was not intended to cause civilian casualties.
In Rafah, we already evacuated about 1 million non-combatant residents, and despite our utmost effort not to harm non-combatants, something, unfortunately, went tragically wrong.
He said Israel is conducting an investigation. He added that it is Israel's policy to look into incidents which result in civilian deaths.
For us, every non-combatant that is hurt is a tragedy. For Hamas, it's a strategy. This is the whole difference.
On Monday, Israel's top military prosecutor described the incident as very grave. She said it was natural that difficult events happen in a war of such scope and intensity.
The details of yesterday's incident are still under an investigation, which we are committed to conducting to the fullest extent. The IDF regrets any harm to non-combatants during the war.
Citing an unnamed source, ABC News reported Israeli officials told the U.S. they believe shrapnel from the airstrike may have ignited a fuel tank near a refugee camp. The report says there is no way for the U.S. to verify this claim. A U.S. National Security Council spokesperson reportedly said Monday, Israel must take every precaution to protect civilians. According to reports, the unnamed White House official said the U.S. is actively engaging the IDF to assess what happened. The statement also said Israel has a right to go after Hamas. Israel also said it is investigating reports of an exchange of fire between Israeli and Egyptian soldiers. Egypt says a border guard was killed near the Rafah border crossing. Egypt's military spokesperson said an investigation is underway. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Closing arguments today in former President Trump's business records trial in New York. We're going to examine the final stages of this trial with our contributor, Mike Leon. He's the host of the Can We Please Talk News Commentary podcast and the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Good to have you here with us, Mike. Give us an idea of the possibilities for how this trial could end, be that conviction, acquittal, or a hung jury, and what would happen in each case.
Hey, Kevin, good to see you first and foremost. Long time no see, right? So today is a big day because you're going to have closing arguments in this case, and this is expected to take, if not all of the day. And then tomorrow there'll be jury instructions that the judge will provide the 12 jurors. And remember, kind of like what you just said. They're going to give instructions on the actual charges in this case, what to prosecute law-wise. Remember, it's 35 counts of falsifying business records here. So the jury instructions will be very clear and outlined, and then the jury will go to deliberate, and they can go back and forth with the judge, asking different legal questions if they want. And then eventually, all 12 have to find him either guilty. If just one juror finds him innocent, obviously, then the prosecution has not proven their case. Or the worst part, which is some fear could happen in this, is that after days and days of deliberation, the jury continues to come back to the judge and say they can't come to an agreement on this, and there could be a hung jury. A hung jury would mean we'd have to do this all over again, Kevin. So we'd be talking about this probably further on into the campaign cycle and into the November election.
Yeah, and I will add to that, Mike, that former U.S. Attorney Harry Littman, he spoke to NPR's podcast. He said, if Trump's convicted, there's no chance of jail time before November. And if there's a hung jury, well, then there's going to be a retrial probably, but not before the election. And if there's an acquittal, that's a big win for Trump here. We mentioned closing arguments expected today, but will the verdict ultimately depend on whether the jury finds Cohen as a credible witness?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of witnesses, and again, talking to every different legal analyst I've talked to, there was two witnesses that everybody pointed out, right? Obviously, Stormy Daniels, aka Stephanie Clifford, was the core of this case, right? Because the money went to her. But Michael Cohen already went to prison for this. The issue was Michael Cohen saying he was acting on behalf of the president, right? So before this even started, the public opinion was the credibility of these two specific witnesses. And I remember the prosecution called, I think, over 20 or so witnesses, including Hope Hicks, who was a former comms director for the former president. So they are the ones that have to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And obviously the defense only called two witnesses. They felt, and I think the defense's strategy was, hey, we didn't really need to prove much in this case, right? Because look at the credibility of these two witnesses. And you saw, Kev, how many days it took to interview Michael Cohen on the stand. It took, at least a week or so. And then obviously you had the same thing with Stephanie Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels, because the defense was trying to poke holes at different parts of their argument, whether or not, Stephanie met the former president in this hotel, whether Michael Cohen was instructed by the former president to make these payments. So I think the credibility is at the core case, at the core tenet here of this case for the jurors. But I'll be interested to see also the jury instructions. And as we get into the deliberation phase, if the jury's coming back with some notes for the judge to clarify a couple of questions on the legality of certain charges, that's going to be interesting to see, because then that's going to mean that some jurors have a question about whether or not this is actually or rises to the level of a crime, that they can find him guilty of a crime. So that's going to be interesting to watch over these next couple of days too.
Okay, Mike, and Trump's been kept off the campaign trail to some extent because of this trial. Has that set him back, or is his name recognition just going to carry him through, and that's why he's neck and neck with Biden?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, I think it's helping him not going on the campaign trail, to be honest with you, because the former President Biden, has a lot on his plate right now. Obviously, the package I just played before me is what's happening in the war in Gaza, and that is costing President Biden some Democratic votes. So he has his own issues. But I think, we saw former President Trump, he was at the Libertarian Convention this past weekend giving a speech. Obviously, we mentioned about the rally that he did in the South Bronx, in my neck of the woods, where I actually grew up on 170th and Crotona Park South. So he's trying to do a little bit, at least to key demographics within these communities, even though these are largely blue areas, because he hasn't traveled much. I was talking to an Arizona reporter the other day that is covering, that swing state. And the former president hasn't made one stop in Arizona this year. And it's obviously because of the legal schedule and how much he's been in New York. So I don't know if it's hurting him just yet, because we see polling that shows it's not. But I know that the campaign right now is at least trying to do different things to meet different voter blocks that they could potentially get some long tail content out of that can serve them down the road as they continue to make campaign ads as we head into the first debate June 27th.
All right, well, thank you. Our contributor, Mike Leon, the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
Thanks, Kevin.
And former President Trump is asking a federal judge to reject a gag order request in his classified documents case. His attorneys are calling it unconstitutional censorship. The gag order requested by special counsel Jack Smith's office would limit Trump's ability to talk publicly about officials who searched his Mar-a-Lago estate. This followed Trump's criticism about a deadly force statement for the 2022 FBI raid. Trump's campaign claimed that the Department of Justice was locked and loaded and ready to kill the former president. But the use of deadly force is standard government policy for search warrants. Smith argued Trump's characterizations have endangered law enforcement officers. He says limiting such comments does not restrict legitimate speech. Trump's lawyers say the order is meant to target Trump's speech as he runs for president. Onto the weather, a series of powerful storms and tornadoes hit the central and southern U.S. over Memorial Day weekend.
State authorities say the severe weather killed at least 23 people.
Officials say there's been over 600 reports of storm damage in at least 20 states. President Biden says FEMA is on the ground doing damage assessments.
The president says he's contacted governors to see what federal support they need. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the aftermath.
Severe weather over Memorial Day weekend left at least 23 people in 4 states dead. Cook County, Texas officials say a tornado hit a trailer park Sunday, killing 7 people. That included a woman and her 2 young children. Their trailer was thrown across a street. Drone footage of the area shows destroyed buildings and wrecked vehicles. One resident says he feels lucky to be alive.
At the moment there, I thought, well, I'm going to be able to hold it together.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear on Monday said 5 people died in his state. Beshear's office says the 5th death was a 54-year-old man who died from a heart attack while cutting fallen trees. Beshear said 1 person injured was fighting for their life.
So please pray for that individual as his circumstances appear very difficult and dire.
The governor said restoring power in some areas could take days. Officials say the storms damaged around 100 state highways and roads. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders said weekend storms left at least 8 people dead. She said the focus is on rescue during the assessment phase and warned rebuilding would not be a short process. Oklahoma authorities say 2 people died in Mays County, east of Tulsa. Over 20 others were injured, including guests at an outdoor wedding. The National Weather Service warned over 30 million people of severe thunderstorms as storms moved northeast. Meanwhile, South Texas to Florida is seeing an early season heat wave. The Atlantic hurricane season starts next Saturday, which government forecasters say could have the potential to be extraordinary. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
The storms delayed flights in the New York City area by up to 3 hours yesterday, making travel difficult after the long holiday weekend.
Most delays at LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark airports were at least 1 hour.
Talking about flight delays, passengers in Chicago were forced to abandon a United Airlines flight as the aircraft's engine caught fire.
There were no injuries reported. This is the latest in a spate of aviation incidents in recent months.
United Flight 2091 had to be towed from the taxiway to the gate after one of its engines caught fire yesterday.
The airline said all 148 passengers aboard the Airbus A320 were put on another flight with minimal delays. Local media reported arrivals were briefly halted at O'Hare Airport.
In a separate incident this weekend, an alarming few moments for passengers aboard a Florida-bound Spirit Airlines flight. They were asked to put on their life preservers and prepare for a water landing soon after takeoff from Montego Bay, Jamaica.
The airline said the Airbus A321 had to turn around and return to Montego Bay following a suspected mechanical issue. It landed safely at Sangster International Airport, and passengers were put on a different flight. And still to come, the National Archives hopes to shed light on untold stories of Revolutionary War veterans. The work involves transcribing 2 million pages of historical records. What's the end goal of the project? Get the whole story.
And this wall isn't keeping people out, it's bringing them together. Hear more about a mobile Vietnam War memorial in Los Angeles after this short break.
People often ask, where's the best place in Korea to do business?
Chongbuk Free Economic Zone, of course. Take the first step to a successful investment and enjoy a bright future with CP Petchu.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
We are only 80 years removed from countries that killed 60 to 70 million people intentionally. And we have people being like, oh, it can't happen here. Yeah, it can, and it might.
These people, they're not interested in the facts. They're not interested in anything except crushing people that are in their way.
There needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
A strong church can stop this.
Lord Heavenly Father, I pray to you today to guide us tomorrow. Give us strength as we face death. Help us not to be afraid, as we know that we are going to be coming to your kingdom.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
The National Archives has embarked on a new project it hopes will shed light on some untold stories of Revolutionary War veterans.
The goal of a collaboration with the National Park Service in Washington, D.C. is to transcribe 2 million pages of historical records.
Project organizers are trying to recruit citizen archivists to review the original pension applications of thousands of veterans. The veterans were men who fought in America's war for independence. The handwritten applications are already scanned and digitized, but volunteers are needed to help decipher and organize them.
The end goal is to create a database that can be searched by battles, names, dates, and more. America's 250th birthday on July 4th, 2026 is the target date for completion of the project.
Oh, imagine what that could bring up. What information that could reveal.
Yeah, kind of piecing everything back together. Yeah. Maybe even history books will incorporate some of this too, if there's some new statistics or findings.
Absolutely. And, you know, family stories, family trees, all the history that's there for informing, you know, people's identities, really.
Yeah, 250th anniversary. That's a quarter millennia.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing how that all goes. Next up, in a similar vein, a wall usually doesn't travel, but this Memorial Day, one wall did.
And while most walls keep people out, this one brings people together. NTD's Bill Thomas checks in to tell us more.
On a cloudy day at Smith Park in the Southern California city of Pico Rivera, a half-scale model of the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. stands at the center of attention. For folks who can't visit the East Coast to see the original wall, one Los Angeles County group is bringing that wall to them.
38 years ago, this wall was erected in Washington, D.C., and a lot of people are not able to go to Washington, D.C. to see the wall. So this organization, the AV Wall organization, donates their time to bring this to cities around America, and we were fortunate enough to be chosen last year.
There's only one of 5 in the United States. This wall here is one on the West Coast.
It travels at least twice a year. Sometimes we've done 3 a year. We don't travel consistently because we are strictly a small volunteer group of people who do this out of the kindness of our hearts.
Building this wall was no easy task. It took time, effort, and money. Stacia tells us more.
This is a memorial that was created in the Antelope Valley, and it was by local citizens. Contributions came from our community, from our school children, from large corporations, and it took many, many more years than we ever imagined and many, many more dollars, but the wall was built and its initial display was in 2009, and since then it has traveled to many communities in Southern California.
Moving this wall from one location to another is no easy task, and it weighs in at close to 2 tons. It's solid, heavy, and expensive, but at the end of the day, it's all for a very good cause.
We've created relationships in every community that we go to because it's very healing for the family members to come and see this and know we haven't forgotten the sacrifice of their loved one.
George Palermo, a Vietnam War veteran who also works with the AV Wall organization, tells us what this wall means to him.
A traveling wall brought me home from Vietnam many years ago. And to be involved with this and be part of it is just heartwarming for me.
The wall also displays a number of images, and Palermo explains the significance of many of those markings.
The wall has different symbols on it. There's a diamond, there's a cross, and then there's a cross within the diamond. The diamond means that they were killed in action and their bodies were recovered. The cross means that they are missing in action.
On the wall, there are also 44 sets of brothers, 3 sets of fathers and sons, and 8 nurses. If you'd like to learn more about the Mobile Vietnam Memorial Wall, simply visit the website avwall.org. Bill Thomas and Jimmy Ma, NTD News, Los Angeles.
Looks like a lot of work, but really worth it.
Oh, yes. And I can believe it, that woman saying that it was healing for her to be part of all that work that she dedicated to making it happen.
Yeah,
because
being
it means
part
so
of
much.
a bigger cause.
Absolutely. And, you know, being here in New York City, we see, if you go down to World Trade Center, space, there are people there who travel from all over the world who may have no personal connection even with it, but just being there to honor the lives is a healing thing. You know, anything that affects us in such a way, it's worth remembering.
Yes, being part of history and contributing to the greater cause. And there were some reports that there were some pro-Palestinian protests nearby, and they had their bullhorns in hand calling for a ceasefire following more civilian deaths. But it did not stop this memorial ceremony, and there were some deputies that kind of had to come in and create a little barrier there.
Oh, right. Yeah, good to hear that update. Thanks, Kevin. And changing track, the 35th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre is coming up on June 4th.
Activities around the world remember the moment in history. NTD's Jason Blair was at an event in San Francisco to learn from attendees why remembering this day is important to them.
So I'm here in Chinatown in San Francisco. A group of pro-democracy activists have gathered to commemorate the 35th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Now they have signs posted with some information about the event, and they're also going to be cleaning the Goddess of Democracy statue to commemorate the victims from the massacre. On June 4th, 1989, an estimated thousands of pro-democracy protesters were killed by the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing.
Now we came here to clean the statue of democracy. We want to memorize who died for us, and we want to carry on, to continue to fight for the freedom and the democracy of China.
It's the 15th year this event has been held in San Francisco and is the first of 3 planned for the area.
I speak for the freedom and the democracy. I think this history shouldn't be forgotten and recovered up.
One participant wants more people to know what the CCP did to the protesting students in 1989 and things the CCP is still doing today.
The Communist Party, the government in China, took our all property with no reason. They just took our all assets. So we don't have any place to complain about this. We can only to escape from China to be here.
The CCP maintains strict censorship in China of any mention or even allusion to the event or the date June 4th.
George Orwell, he writing the book about 1984 and Animal Fair. it's actually is real world in China.
The Goddess of Democracy statue in San Francisco's Chinatown is a replica of the one pro-democracy students erected during the protests in 1989. Since then, it's been a symbol of standing up to the CCP and totalitarianism around the world.
Everyone should have the right to pursue the freedom and the democracy.
More events and vigils will be held around the world on and leading up to the official day of observation, which is June 4th. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Such an important moment in history to remember.
Oh, yes, and indicative of so many other aspects of this regime that we know so much about and continues to impact the world, right? It's just one piece of a big story about the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, they had a memorial put up outside the European Parliament to commemorate the Tiananmen Square massacre. And the artist says it sends a strong signal to Beijing.
And on that point, you know, I believe this is really a brave thing for those people to do. A lot of these people have relations who are still back home in China, who could be targeted, as we know through our reporting and all the investigation that we've done. People are still subject to being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party even when they're outside of China. So doing acts that celebrate democracy and bring to light something that is so hidden within China is really a brave act.
That is a good point. And yeah, remembrance is just such a powerful tool here. People just getting out and talking about it as much as possible.
Absolutely. Well, we have to wrap up our show now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which is coming up.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
Thanks for watching. I'm Stephanie Cox.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.